You know, I was told repeatedly throughout my entire childhood that if anybody ever touches you, you make sure you tell. And then, lo and behold, someone touched me. It was my sophomore year in high school, and I certainly knew right from wrong. And when the unwelcomed touch turned into more, I spoke up. I told, and absolutely nothing happened. The person and I lived under the same roof, and absolutely nothing happened. I somehow managed to escape the situation, then ran for miles to find safety at a friend's house, and nothing happened. He didn't deny it, but instead profusely apologized and asked if we could all sit down and talk it through. Talk it through? I was mortified because in my head, there was absolutely nothing to talk about. This man tried to rape me. So I stood my ground and I asked that a bag be packed, brought to where I was staying, and I never stepped a foot back in his house. My family dynamic was completely shattered and sent me on a downward spiral into depression. This particular day, I was all alone and just remember feeling a deep, dark sadness. I went to get a drink of water from the refrigerator and I noticed a bottle of pills. I had no intention. I didn't have a thought that said, I want to kill myself, or I want to die, or anything like that. I started swallowing the pills, the entire bottle of pills. And then I noticed that they were prescribed to him. At that point, I began to cry uncontrollably. I surrendered, but I wanted to call someone to say goodbye. I called my cousin that I was really close to. I called her because she lived too far to do anything to help me. Well, I was wrong. The next thing I remember was waking up in the hospital with a tube down my throat. And I know this is gonna sound real cliche or whatever, but I knew in that moment that I wanted to live. I realized that very moment that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Now, don't get me wrong. I was still empty inside and I continued to feel all the feelings. But it was a mental shift. I also made a promise that day to no longer speak up or speak out. When I returned to school, my choir teacher demanded that I audition for the musical. And although I really didn't care about Joseph or his stupid coat, I did it anyway. And I got the lead role of the narrator. I didn't know anything about musicals except that they were cheesy and stupid. But when I stepped on stage for the very first time, that opening night, it was like I found my purpose. I had never ever felt so at home, so deserving, and like I belonged than I did being on stage. It was like the ultimate high, and I don't even know what drugs are like, but this shit was magical. Especially musicals. I could sing, dance, and act all at the same time. Amazing. By becoming all of these other characters and living their lives, I was able to leave mine temporarily. It allowed me to channel that pain and depression and all of that negative energy that surrounded me into a more positive space. And for me, it was better than any therapy I'd experienced. I'd always marched to the beat of my own drum and rarely followed the crowd. But now, being a theater kid, this put a whole new spin on that. And I didn't care one bit. I went on to major in theater, which led to a singing gig that allowed me to tour northern Italy. Once I got back from that tour, I packed my bags in my little Hyundai and I moved to Los Angeles. I didn't know a soul and I didn't care. While living there, I saw an amazing one-woman show. She transformed into all of these different characters. She embodied them with such ease, and they all had all these different accents. I was like, come tell ya, I do accents, and I do character work. And I can totally make people laugh. Could I do something like that? I don't know. Maybe one day I will. And then I had an opportunity to be a part of a writing workshop, specifically for one-person shows. I had the perfect picture of what my show would be like. And one thing I made perfectly clear to the instructor on day one was that my show was not going to be about my life. We were given these writing assignments and we would share, and so many great stories came out of that group. At one point in the class, I was horrified when I realized that what I was writing, what the other actors and writers reacted to the most, what moved them, were the stories of my life. Performing the show started a movement within me, a movement that had awakened that little spitfire that would speak up and speak out. All of this made me realize that even though I felt nothing happened when I spoke up, I was wrong. Something did happen. And even though I felt abandoned as that 15-year-old girl, I am realizing, for the first time now, that I chose me. I chose my safety. I chose me. And I'm glad that I did, because we later found out that the man who sexually assaulted me had molested his stepdaughter multiple times years before assaulting me. What if I had not spoken up? What if I had not stood up for myself? What if I had acted like that was some completely normal shit and swept it under the rug like I was being suggested to do? I went on to perform the show in Chicago and Los Angeles with rave reviews from critics. And then my last performance was at a sold-out show at the Royal George Theater in Chicago, which ended with a surprise marriage proposal. I was now back to speaking up and speaking out. And I was planning to start a nonprofit in which I would use my show to inspire women and young girls to use their voices. I moved to Peoria and began a new chapter in my life, being married to my soulmate and experiencing the joy of motherhood. As we began the journey of Art Inc., I consulted with family and friends, and we all agreed that I shouldn't tell this particular story. Even though I agreed, it didn't sit well with me. It made me feel some kind of way because I'd kept this private for so long and was just experiencing the joy and exhilaration of speaking my truth. But these sort of stories have always been kept quiet. Everyone knows you don't air your dirty laundry, and you definitely don't talk about mental health, depression, suicide, or anything of that nature in the Black community. And then I remembered that 15-year-old girl that spoke up for herself. What would I say to her? I would remind her that she marches to the beat of her own drum and she doesn't follow the crowd. Well, ladies and gentlemen, she's back. And tonight, I remove the muzzle because this is who I am. I speak up and I speak out. Not just for me, but I will speak up and speak out for you. I will create safe spaces for you, your daughters, your aunties, and for my mom, who I eventually learned had been molested as a child. And when I was assaulted, she shut down just the way she had done when she was a little girl. And for all the Black and brown girls who have been told or feel that they should mute themselves. And it all starts with me. So I stand here authentically and unapologetically being me.